All right, welcome everyone. Thanks for joining. Since there are so few of us tonight, I'll keep this pretty informal. So feel free to chime in. Put your video on, whatever you feel comfortable doing, and unmute yourself for questions, or just type them in the chat box, as Adam said, as I go through here. So I'm first going to ask, like I said, since there are so few of us and we can make this more interactive, is have any of you on here ever grown mushrooms before? If you just want to either unmute or type that in the chat box.
No, I have not.
Okay.
Yes, this is Cheryl. We have tried to with Joe, the class that he gave, and he had the logs and we put the capsules in, the spores.
Yeah.
We had pretty good luck with one log. I think we weren't in enough light.
Okay.
That was our issue, I think.
Okay. Good to see you on here, Cheryl.
Thank you. Good to be here.
And Debbie,
right.
Debbie has said that she has not done it.
Okay, awesome. All right. Well, so I'm going to, it was hard to figure out like what my focus would be, because I've done a lot with, as Cheryl talked about, we've done a lot of hands-on classes with mushrooms, with growing shiitake mushrooms on logs and inoculating those mushrooms in the class. So doing it on Zoom's a little bit different, because like I said, I've done the interactive classes with it. But there's a lot of different ways to grow mushrooms indoors, which I haven't focused on with my hands-on classes, and outdoors. So this class is going to focus a little bit in on both of those ways to do it, where you can grow indoors and outdoors. And I'm just focusing on some of the more known ones that people do at home. And some that I'll talk about, which ones are easier than others. So I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen here. And I have some videos as well. Let me start my... And so I'll have to turn off my share and start those videos as we go through here. So if you want to bear with me as I do that. Okay. So we're going to get started here on growing mushrooms. See if I can advance. Oh, there we go. Okay. So first I'm going to start with some terminology that will help us now it's really going, of course. Terminology that will help us as we go through here for you to understand. Sorry, I'm trying to minimize my screen here so I can see better. That will help you as I go through here and talk about mushrooms. So mycology is the study of mushrooms, of fungi. And if you remember from biology class, that fungi actually make up their own kingdom. So while they grow like plants, they actually breathe in oxygen and release CO2 like animals. So mycologists study the complexities of both of those things. And so then with a mushroom, you have a spore, which is essentially a mushroom seed. So the seed in the mushroom. And like pollen, a spore is incomplete until it has its other half to reproduce. And then once it's mated, it becomes a spawn. And the spawn is what carries those fungal roots, or what some of you might know is referred to as mycelium. And that is what can digest various materials, which we'll talk about the materials that the mushrooms need to grow on. And it can be in sawdust, in plug spawn that you put into logs, all different various means of that, which I'll show you pictures of and talk about. And then mycelium is basically the roots of the mushroom. And then the substrate is the food that I talked about, like the sawdust and those things that can be that the mushrooms will grow on. So wood chips, logs, straw, all of that. And then the spawn run is how long it takes for that mycelium to make its way through the substrate and convert that edible good, which is that wood chips, the logs, and the straws. And once it is completely consumes that material, then it's fully colonized, as they call it. And then that's when you start to see the mushrooms grow. And this will make more sense as I go through here and show you pictures. And then inoculation is what they call actually the process of putting the mushroom into your log or your straw or whatever material you're using to grow the mushroom in. And then dormancy is just talking about if you're growing on logs, and the timing to do that is when in the fall. So now actually like mid-October through when the buds swell in the spring of the tree, so like mid-March. So the time to inoculate your logs would be, from now until mid-March. Okay, and then this is a diagram, probably not very helpful, actually, now looking at it, but it basically shows you how, like, we're not going to do the process of the sterilization that you see at the top here, but this is how they are getting that that spawn to us, how they make it in the lab to then be able to sell it to us in the companies that we purchase this spawn from. So it's a very hard process of sterilizing. You get a spore print from the mushroom, or you can clone it, and then you're going to inoculate it into grain so it can grow. And then you have the spawn that then they put into little wood dowels or into grain for us to then buy and grow in whatever we're going to grow the mushroom in. So it's kind of a complicated process, but this kind of just shows you. And then, you see it in bags that you can grow it in the logs here, in all different ways to grow them. And so this is just some pictures of, so like the plug spawn on the top here is what we actually grow and use to put the mycelium. You can see a little white on there. I'll show you better pictures as we go through. But you tap that in with a hammer into the log, you put them all through the log, and then that mycelium runs through the log. And then here we have sawdust that you can purchase it in, thimble spawn, and then grain spawn, and peg spawn. So those are all the different types of spawn you can purchase that already are inoculated with the mushroom. And then this is just how mushrooms grow. So you see they start as the spores, they go into hyphae. Then mycelium is those roots. Then you have a little fruiting body, which is the beginning of the mushroom, the egg stage, and then finally erupting through the soil and the mature mushroom. Oops. Okay, so as far as getting started with growing mushrooms, first you're going to decide what species of mushroom you want to cultivate. Oyster mushrooms are the easiest species to grow. So if you're just starting out, oysters mushrooms are going to be the one that you're going to want to start with. As I mentioned, we do shiitake mushrooms on logs as something that can be easy, but it just takes it's a longer process. So that's why they say oysters are faster and just easier to start with. And so then you're going to obtain a culture started from spores. But this is in that picture that I showed you. This is the process that those growers are going to do with the sterilization that we're not going to actually do ourselves unless you're really into growing mushrooms and you're cloning and all that. So we skip number 2 and go down to 3, which is us obtaining the spawn of your whatever you choose to grow, oysters, shiitake. You'll see some other options here, and you'll purchase that from a mushroom cultivation supplier. And I have a list of a reference list that you can use that has all of those cultivation suppliers. There's many different ones. And so you can have that list. I can send this PowerPoint out to you after if you're interested, or you can contact me to get that list. And then you'll decide what material to grow it on. So as I mentioned, you can do logs, you can do indoors in a bag. A lot of these companies will sell blocks that already have the mycelium in it. You just grow it in a bag. You can do coffee grinds, many different things you can grow it on. And then you'll inoculate that, whatever that material is, with the spawn that creates the mushrooms. Then you'll have to put it in the environment that's recommended. And all this information comes with whatever you order for your spawn. And then once it becomes fully colonized, and like I said, I'll show you pictures that'll make this have more sense, by that mycelium that turns white. And then finally, your little mushrooms will start coming out. And then you'll move on to controlling your temperature and light, and things like that to actually push the mushrooms out. This sounds complicated now, but I promise as we go through here, it'll make more sense. So first I'm going to talk about oyster mushrooms. And so these are, some of the common species that people grow. So with oyster mushrooms, they're the easiest, and they are native to many temperate forests, so they can be found actually here. I work with a fish and wildlife biologist that works in the basement of our building, and he finds oyster mushrooms a lot. And so I've eaten them, and they're really, really good. They're called oyster mushrooms because some people say they kind of have an oyster flavor to them. And that's, I guess I would say, true, but really, really good, kind of like a delicate texture and savory. And they're really good just sauteed with garlic and butter. And like I said, they are the easiest to cultivate. You can grow them on logs, on straw, on sawdust, toilet paper. And I'm actually going to show you the easiest way to do it with toilet paper, coffee grounds, and fuel pellets. There's another great video. Field and Forest is a place that I order a lot of supplies from. Like I said, I have a list of many different suppliers, but they have some great videos that help you learn how to do these things, and they show one on fuel pellets. Now I've grown them in straw, as you see on the left-hand side here. This is a bag filled with straw, and the oysters are growing off of that. And basically the process was sterilizing the straw. So we had just a big trash can that we heated up water and sterilized the straw in, because if you can have other fungi in there and then other mushrooms you don't want to grow. So it's important to sterilize it. And then we chop them up into fine pieces and put them in this bag, put them in a closet, and then, a few more steps there, but have these mushrooms grow, and you can harvest them about 2 or 3 times and get, the amount that's shown there in the picture. I'm going through here pretty fast, so please stop me if you have questions. What I'm going to show you now is actually growing oyster mushrooms in toilet paper. And they have kits that are already, they send to you with the spawn and everything you need. You just have to provide the toilet paper. And I'll show you this process of doing that. If I can find, here we go. Okay. So it doesn't have sound. It's just showing you the process. So they dipped it in boiling water. In a kit, the small kit that they sell usually will do about 7 toilet paper rolls. And I think it's $20 to get the spawn. And so then you put that that mushroom spawn, which is on grain. You see the little white mycelium there. You put it down into the toilet paper roll, and tie the bag. You can do this with a Ziploc bag too. You don't have to. It comes with bags in the kit, but you can do it on your own without that. You put it in a cabinet for 3 to 4 weeks. And then that's the mycelium. You see all the white on there, which couldn't see very good in that. But then putting it in the refrigerator actually pushes the mushrooms to, that's what I was talking about with, once it's fully colonized, you can provide certain things, temperatures to push those mushrooms to grow. So now they're going to mist it daily for just a couple days, and then you'll start to see the little tiny mushrooms coming up, and then they actually grow. And you want to continue to mist so that the mushrooms don't dry out, but it's just a process of a few days, and then you can actually...
Your galaxy just got better.
Sorry about that. And then you can actually harvest it more than once. You can get about 2 or 3 harvests off of that. So that's a simple process. You can also order that same grain spawn and do it on coffee grind. So you can go to your local coffee shop and, okay, I'm gonna go back to sharing my video here, or I mean my PowerPoint, and grow on coffee ground. And then, let's see here. Sorry about that with my computer. I'm trying to pull things back up, and then I'm used to having a couple screens and I don't have that. So anyways, there's several different videos that will show you other options for growing oyster mushrooms. Another one that I really like is growing it in a bucket. And this is actually a really easy process of growing them in just a 5-gallon bucket. And basically you just stuff it with different layers. I think there's straw in there, and then you put the grain in between those layers, and you put holes in the bucket all around the 5-gallon bucket, and then the oysters will just grow out of those holes in the bucket. So that's a really neat way. And then this one down here, basic methods for growing mushrooms, tells you how to grow them in the method that we show, the toilet paper, but also in fuel pellets, and then I think also in the bucket. And like I said, I can get these to you, these links to you. Okay, so the next mushroom I'm going to talk about is one that they do have kits to grow inside, but it does much better as to be grown in logs. And so they're not found here wild at like oyster mushrooms are, but they are native to the East Asia, and they're a lot bigger than the white button mushrooms that most people are used to. And they have a real meaty flesh and texture to them, but they kind of taste like nutty or garlicky. And so we've done a lot of hands-on classes, as I mentioned, of inoculating these on logs. And with all mushrooms, and I think probably some of you know, but if you don't, they have a lot of medicinal value to them. So I'll kind of talk about some of those things at the end, but they have a lot of good nutritional value to them. And so more and more people are getting into mushrooms because of what they're finding in medicinal and nutritional value. And so now I'm going to show you a video on inoculating shiitake mushrooms in logs, since this is the other step of actually doing mushrooms outdoors. And we've done this with shiitake mushroom, with oyster mushrooms, and with lion's mane mushrooms. And I'll talk more about those other mushrooms here after we do this, but it'll be the same process of what I'm showing here in this video of inoculating shiitake. You can do it with those other types too. Let's hope this works here.
Good afternoon. I'm Faye Kuzman, and I'm the horticulture agent with the Woodford County Extension Office. And today we are out here in Woodford County harvesting some trees for a mushroom cultivation class. The mushrooms we are going to be doing are shiitake, lion's mane, and oyster. So we'll be showing you what logs, what type of wood to cut for those species.
Hi, I'm Joe Lacefield. I'm a private lands wildlife biologist, and I often help Extension with some of their workshops. Today we're going to be selecting some trees for a mushroom cultivation class, and we're looking for oak right in this particular area for shiitake. Oak will do best for shiitake, makes better fruiting conditions. So generally, when you want to cut these, you want to cut them about 30 inches. But if they're a larger diameter, like at the base of a tree, like this guy, you might want to cut them 24 inches because then it's not too heavy to move around easily. If you're wanting to force flush them or put them in water, you just don't want to hurt yourself trying to move logs from one location to another. So that's the real reason for making them whatever length they are. It's not a requirement that they be X number of inches. We're talking about tree species that we're going to select for growing our mushrooms. Shiitake generally prefer oak. They do best on oak. They will grow on many hardwoods, but for longevity, oak is the number one. Shiitakes will also grow on maple. This happens to be a black maple. Many people would just assume it's a sugar maple, but it's a black maple. You can see it has smooth bark compared to the oak. This is a chinkapin oak. And this is the chinkapin oak leaf, and this is the maple leaf. Maple has opposite branching. Oak has alternate. Learn your tree species and you'll learn to find wild mushrooms as well as grow cultivated mushrooms.
Hi everyone, I'm Faye Kuzman with the Woodford County Extension Office. I'm the horticulture agent here, and we have Joe Lacefield, a private lands biologist for Fish and Wildlife. And today we are going to be drilling holes to put in plug spawn for shiitake mushrooms. So how we do this is we're going to partner up, so we have one person holding the log and one person drilling.
Very good.
Okay.
The holes are going to be approximately 4 inches apart. That's basically your hand width, and we'll stagger them somewhat around the log to increase the mycelium colonization of the log.
Okay.
I'll drill those when we flip the log around if you want to. Yeah, that's fine.
Welcome to the next segment of our series. In this one, we are going to be showing you how we put in the plug spawn.
Not everyone has access to a high-speed angle grinder to drill their holes like we just demonstrated. A regular drill will work just fine, a cordless drill or a corded drill. However, for the 1/4-inch dowel spawn, you'll want a 5/16 inch drill bit. And you want to mark the depth with a piece of tape so that you don't drill it too deep or too shallow. If you drill it too shallow, your plug will mushroom when you go to hammer it into the log.
Okay, so we just hammered those down to where they are flush with the log.
And for the class, you want to make sure all your logs are drilled before you start hammering any of the plugs in. So I've had the wax in my pocket so that it warms up a little bit. It makes it a little easier to spread. This is the wax that you don't have to heat and melt, although those types can be used as well. But you're basically going to get some on your finger and firmly place it on the plug lid, or the end of the plug, sealing the hole. And sometimes you'll have extra. You don't want the plugs to be sticking up out of there. The wax is to keep foreign fungi from moving into the log and to keep the plugs from drying out and the mycelium dying before it colonizes the log. So as far as maintenance of your logs and keeping them viable, you want to make sure you place them in a shaded area, hopefully under deciduous trees where they get plenty of rainfall. If under a drought condition, for example, you might want to hose them every once in a while so that the logs don't get too dry. And you can notice that if the ends get really cracked and check open, it might be getting a little bit too dry for newly inoculated logs. If you want to flush them after they've established, they colonize the log, the mycelium will be little white spots on the ends of the log. At that point, you'll know it's fully established, and you can then force it to flush when you want some mushrooms. You can do that about every 8 weeks within normal temperature ranges. So usually in March, I'll start flushing a few logs by soaking them in water for 24 hours. I have a tub that's basically big enough to submerge them. You can put weights on them if you want. You don't necessarily have to do that, but after they soak for 24 hours, I like to then put them in a tub with a little bit of water in the bottom of the tub, and I tent plastic sheeting over it so that it increases the humidity. It also decreases the bugs that might try to get in there, and the mushrooms will develop in a few days. And it takes them a few days, depending on temperature, to fully develop for harvest. It normally takes a year for a log to become fully colonized and capable of fruiting. Remember, the mushroom itself is just the fruit, like an apple on an apple tree. The organism is the mycelium in the log. And after a year, you'll get your larger flushes. And usually it's more than a year before you can fully see the capability of the log.
Okay, so that was a little bit longer of a video, but I wanted to show you the process of growing outdoors on a log. And I know that not everybody has access to cutting trees on your property, but something we've done in the past. I've been fortunate to know some landowners in the county that have had plenty of land and trees to cut down, that they let us come and cut some. But what we've also done is called a local tree service and asked if they would be cutting any oaks. Well, for shiitake, since they do the best on oaks, we ask for this specifically, but with other mushroom species, depending on what you want to grow, you would need the type of wood for that species, but you can ask a local tree company if they're going to be cutting that type of wood in your area. In that time frame of in the spring, you need to use the logs within 2 weeks of them being cut, so that other fungi doesn't start growing in them and take over that log. But if you can get them in the spring in March, or in the fall in October, those are the best times. So if you can call a local tree company and they happen to be cutting those trees, which a lot of times we've had luck in that, then you can get some free wood that you can then grow those mushrooms outdoors in logs. And as I said, we've done this with shiitake mushrooms, oyster mushrooms, and with lion's mane. And so now we'll go back to my PowerPoint here. Does anybody have any questions at this time? If you do, feel free to unmute and ask them. And if not, I'm just going to continue through here. If I can get my slides to advance. There we go. Okay, so this is just some pictures of the shiitake mushroom logs after inoculating them in different ways. People will stack them. So log cabin style or just teepee style, as you see on the right here. And those are all the shiitakes coming out of there. The really nice thing is the shiitake mushrooms on logs can, and other mushrooms, can last for up to 10 to 15 years. They will continue to produce once inoculated. And so here is a picture of, I think actually these are some logs that I had just freshly done and stacked up. And you can just see how they're inoculated there. And then that's the mycelium that you start to see on the ends that's taking over the whole log. So you'll see the white that grows throughout, and then you know that it's colonized and will be fruiting soon. This is what he talked about with forcing them, that you can put them in. You can see someone used just an old swimming pool up there and weighted them down with cinder blocks, a feeding tub, or a water tank. And those are ways to force them, as he mentioned, that you can force every 8 weeks. Once you've inoculated them and they've been at least a year for that mycelium to fill the whole log, then you can start in the spring. Every 8 weeks, you can force them to produce by putting them in water for 24 hours and then taking them out and then covering them. This is what he talked about. Once he took them out of the water after 24 hours, he covered them with plastic, and then you get the humidity in there and the mushrooms start to produce. And then you can see on the left there, when they're just starting to pop out, and then literally within like a day or two, they start to form, as you see on the right-hand side there. And then once again. Okay. So that was, the first one we talked about with oyster, that you can grow in many different ways. Inside, you can do it in straw. You can do it in the bags on toilet paper. And then, of course, in logs as well. So, some indoor and outdoor options there. Then the shiitake, where you're growing them in the logs, but you can also do, oyster and lion's mane and logs and a few other ones. And the process is the same as what I just showed you. And now we're going to talk about some mushrooms that you can grow actually in landscape beds, believe it or not. This is, sorry, I'm switching my screen again here, wine cap mushroom. So a wine cap mushroom is kind of looks like a portobello mushroom with that kind of port wine colored cap. and they're really crisp, kind of nutty, slightly nutty flavor, similar to portobello mushrooms. And they are great, also a great natural soil builder. And so you can put them in your landscape bed, and there's a whole process to doing that. But they're actually pretty easy to identify as well, which is nice. Because with mushrooms, of course, you want to be make sure that you're identifying correctly before eating them. Of course, now in the indoor system, it's easy to know what you're growing. And then usually with a shiitake, they're very easy to identify. And same with these. And so I'm going to show you one more video. I know I'm overloading you with videos, but I just want to show you the process of doing this, which is similar to the next mushroom I'll talk about as well. That can be grown in a landscape bed. And then I've got a couple more after that, and we'll wrap up so that you can ask some questions. So here's one more. Let me make sure I have sound on. Yep. Okay. So I'll share this one more, and this is a quick video of growing them in your landscape bed, this wine cap mushroom. If I can figure out how to play it here. There we go.
Hi there. Today I'm going to plant my very first mushroom bed of the season. I'm going to pick wine cap because wine cap mushrooms are so much fun and they're so easy to grow. There are 3 reasons why I like wine cap so much. First reason is that it's a very easy mushroom to grow. If you've been growing mushrooms at all on logs, you will understand how easy this is. The second reason is that the mushroom substrate is very easy to come by: wood chips, straw of many different kinds. And the third reason is these wine cap beds can suppress weeds and also improve your soil greatly by turning wood chips and straw into a very plant-friendly organic matter. The first thing you need to do is to pick a site for your wine cap bed. Partial shade is great, so in the apple orchard, underneath a grape arbor, underneath a asparagus bed, on the edges of forests, those are all really, really great places to put your wine cap bed. In this case, I'm going to use my wine cap bed primarily to suppress this nasty stinging nettle that we have around our high tunnel. And also it's on the north side of the tunnel, so it provides pretty good shade next to these white pine that we have here. So I feel pretty comfortable we'll get some really nice mushrooms from this bed. Now you can grow wine cap on just wood chips or just straw, but I like to use a combination. In this method we're going to be using a 3-layer combination, which is cardboard on the bottom to help suppress my weeds, straw in the middle to provide very fast spawn run, and on the very top to provide moisture control of the straw underneath, and also that extra really super nutritious woody layer of wood chips on the top.
And there you have it. So she put those in the springtime, and then by fall, had the mushrooms out there. You can see I have a little helper here. I have been sick, so fighting some sickness brought in by the kids. So I am doing this from home today. So my little helper showed up here. So that is it's something else that is really fun to try. Those wine cap mushrooms are actually really easy to grow in a landscape bed. So another really neat way to grow some mushrooms. Let me put this back on here. Okay. I'm going to try to bring my screen back up here. Oh, sorry. Okay. So that was the wine cap. And now this other almond agaricus, they say is really like a portobello, or really common to the white button that you find at the grocery store, or the portobello mushrooms in its appearance and its taste. And it's more of a the wine cap is more of like a beginner's mushroom to try. They said this is more of a moderate, so maybe in trying with a wine cap, this would be like the next level you would go to. But it can also be grown in some people will grow it in high tunnels, because we have a lot of high tunnels in our area, but they'll grow it in landscape beds just the same. And it's the same process as that wine cap of building a bed, but you actually grow them in compost. So they'll grow, you can just create a little bed, grow them in compost, and do that same method of putting a layer of compost down, having that bag of spawn that you purchased from a company, and then putting another layer of compost on top, and then they will start to grow after that. So I'll go through just a few more mushrooms here, and then we'll go kind of wrap up and talk about the health benefits of mushrooms, and then ask any questions that you may have. So maitake is another really great mushroom that actually grows here in Kentucky. And I actually just had some last week that our Fish and Wildlife biologist found out on growing on a tree. And they're probably the best mushroom that I've ever had. Really, really great nutty flavor, have some great medicinal properties. But they can be grown outdoors on logs, similar to what exactly like we looked at with the shiitake mushrooms. They're also known as hen of the woods. And then we have chicken. There's chicken of the woods and hen of the woods. I think I have another one on chicken of the woods, but both grow here in Kentucky. So lion's mane, another one that can, and you see a familiar face there on the left. And it's funny because as I was preparing this presentation and searching something, this is the first thing that popped up when I typed in lion's mane. And apparently he grows, is really into mushroom foraging because of all the health benefits with it. And so I just thought it was funny. I had to throw that in here that he was on there. But these are another one I think I mentioned earlier, that we do these and we inoculate logs with the lion's mane, but they can also be found in the wild and have this very distinct kind of lion's mane appearance to them. And I will say it's probably another one of the best mushrooms that I've ever tasted. So good. And they're doing a lot of research, particularly on the lion's mane to do with brain health. And for those suffering from Alzheimer's and dementia, and finding a lot of really great things in benefits to your brain with the lion's mane. So they're becoming more of a popular thing. But like I said, they can be found grown in the wild, also can be grown in kits that are in already bags, like you can see here, growing out of a bag that you can buy a kit for, or in the logs. And the reishi mushroom, many of you might know this, it's a traditional Chinese medicine mushroom. It cannot be found here in our climate, but it is one of those more made in teas, but a very highly esteemed medicinal mushroom. And it can grow, it can't be found in the wild, but you can grow it on sawdust in the bags or on logs. So there's another kit that you can find if you're into more of, the medicinal or health benefit mushrooms. I don't think I did put a chicken of the woods on here, but I did mention that as hen of the woods and chicken of the woods. Chicken of the woods is a very distinct, easy mushroom to identify as well. that can be found in the wild, similar to the head of the woods, but it's a bright orange color. And another one that I really, really like, and it does taste similar to chicken. I know that's what most people say, tastes like chicken, but it does have that similar kind of meaty taste to it. The final one I'm going to wrap up with here is turkey tail, because this is one that you can find on any kind of like rotting logs that you find on a hike as you're walking and seeing decomposing logs. And as you can see, they kind of do look like a turkey tail, but you can see the size there with the hand. But they have a lot of medicinal properties as well if you make them into a tea. And I'm happy to share more information about that, but I just wanted to show you because they are very, very common. You can find them out in the woods all over here in Kentucky. But more of, I mean, they make them into pills and into teas and all kinds of formulations. Same with a reishi. If you look that up, you can find all kinds of different teas and pills with those mushrooms. And then I'm going to wrap up with just these resources. We have with our Center for Crop Diversification with the University of Kentucky, we have an article that has some great information on gourmet and medicinal mushrooms and some really good helpful links and resources. And then the best website I found is the North American Mycological Association, which has this link is actually to particular resources of where you can find the mushroom spawn that I showed you, whether it's the plugs or the grain that you buy to actually inoculate. So if you just type in North American Mycological Association, you will see and find all of that. And then finally, for shiitake mushrooms in particular, we have on our University of Kentucky Forestry and Natural Resources Department page, we have a whole list of resources on shiitake mushroom production. There's a couple of videos. There's an introduction to shiitake resources, harvesting, monitoring, all the things that are similar, not just to shiitake, but other types of mushrooms that you inoculate into a log. And with that, I am going to finish the presentation here and open it up to any questions, but I will first mention, I've been talking about a lot of the health benefits of mushrooms. And so they're high in fiber and protein, and the big thing is antioxidants. So they are supposed to really help boost your immune system. But I also mentioned with the lion's mane that they're finding a lot of, benefits with dementia and Alzheimer's. And a lot of them they're finding in help with heart disease and cancer and diabetes. But they have a lot of other things, vitamin D, magnesium, phosphorus, so many different health benefits. If you look into that, people are really starting to research and see how many benefits they have. So with that, I'm going to open it up to anybody that would like to unmute your mic or type in the chat box. I have the chat box open here so I can see any questions you type in or anything you would like to ask. And I know I did a lot of videos, so I do apologize for that, but I find it easier to kind of see than just kind of talk through. And those videos are really great pre-made videos that I thought would be helpful for you to see how easy that you can do that.
So I have a question.
Yeah, Trish.
Hi. Thank you, by the way, for the presentation. Appreciate it. A lot of good information. I would like further information. So I'm assuming your webpage has most of the resources. I know you touched base on some of what's available, but as far as the list of suppliers, is that available on your website as well?
Yes, so that last page that had the resources, that north, shoot, I already forget it now. Sorry.
Mycology, yeah. Yes, mycology.
Yes, that has all the list of places that you can find or purchase these supplies.
Fantastic, thank you.
And I'm happy to email that out to everyone as well. I'm gonna put my email in the chat box here. And if you just want to email me individually, I can just send it to you that way as well, just because I know, maybe not everybody would be interested, but if you have any follow-up questions or want more information, this was just a very fast overview of all the different ways to grow mushrooms. And there's so much out there. This just gives you a little taste of that. So definitely for any follow-up, feel free to email me at that address I just typed in.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. and I'm going to throw this out there. For whoever types in their name in the chat box first and is willing to come to Woodford County, my office in Versailles in Woodford County, will get a free oyster mushroom kit to grow it on toilet paper. Okay, it looks like Ruth is the winner on that. Ruth, are you willing to come to Woodford County in Versailles to pick that up? As long as you are, then you're the winner. Okay, great. Well, if you can email me, Ruth, at that email address, I'll type it in one more time, but if you can email me, we can arrange for pickup of that kit. So congratulations. And it'll do 7 toilet paper rolls. You're welcome. Did I have another question in the chat box here? I think I do.
Say, that was from me. I'm not sure how we messed up, but we had the 3 logs. We had spores from the lion's mane, shiitake, and oyster. And I think all we ever got was oyster. We gave it a full almost 2 years and would reposition them, tried to get the moisture. And then finally Dale decided he was going to burn one of them and he brought it out. And that's when we got oyster.
That's so funny.
Needless to say, we kept that log. But so do you think, does it help whenever you stand them up rather than have them? Most of the time we just had them laying in the ground and we would rotate them. Do you think maybe we didn't rotate them often enough, or should they have been standing up more so and getting air around the log? What do you think the issue could have been?
Well, it does help to get that air, but it's not necessary. I mean, I've seen them laying on the ground, and actually having the moisture from the ground is really helpful for the log to stay moist. So honestly, I'm not sure. They were getting in plenty of shade and moisture.
A lot of shade and moisture.
Okay.
So, and then we moved them to another spot and that's whenever I think they were getting a little bit of sun.
Okay.
But, can they get too much sun?
They can, yes. Okay. Yeah, so that would just cause them to dry out because the shade is really just what it takes to create that proper environment to have it, stay moist and to not dry out the logs.
Okay.
So it's possible it could have been that, but I would like to help you figure that one out. So maybe we can talk.
Where would you purchase the sawdust blocks? I'm ready to try that. The sawdust blocks.
Oh yeah, the blocks that are already pre-inoculated that you just grow from the block.
Yes.
Like in the pictures. Yeah. So one of them, and like I said, I can't just recommend one company, but what I've been ordering a lot of my products from is Field and Forest.
Okay.
And they're really great to work with. But like I said, there's that whole list of resources out from that Northern Mycology Association that has a ton of different companies where they all sell those kits. But to start out with, if you just want to Google Field and Forest, you'll see how it all works and how they sell those kits. That you can either have the blocks, or you can, like the toilet paper kit I ordered, or the plugs, all the things.
Okay, I think
and
I might cheat
videos as well.
I think I might cheat this time and just use a log, use a kit then.
Yeah, yeah, it's a good way at least to get started and kind of actually get mushrooms right away instead of waiting so long, just to really start the process and then go to the next step from there. But I would love to, talk more about what could have been some other possible problems with the logs at another time.
Thank you. This was interesting. Great job. Thank you.
Thanks.
We have another question as well, Faye. Ruth had asked, do the log mushrooms freeze in the wintertime?
No, they do not. Nope. So they are fine over the winter. Of course, they don't produce over the winter. But they sustain our temperatures through the winter just fine. And then normally they like the cooler temperatures, but more of like a spring and fall temperature is when they really produce the most, unless you're doing that forcing that we talked about, where you're soaking them in water and covering them.
And then the other thing, just a point of reference from my experience, not only Field and Forest, but I've tried Mushroom Magic is another good site. Or Mushroom Mountain, I think it was. But both of those, a lot of those sites will be putting on holiday sales too here very shortly. So that's always something to keep your eye out for, those kind of kits there. They make good. I've used those pre-inoculated logs as Christmas presents before.
Oh yeah, that's true. And I have been getting a lot of emails from the different mushroom companies with those sales. So you're right, they are pushing that right now.